All right, welcome dwarves to the first Dwarf Day we've done in I want to say close to a year. It's been a minute.
No, we did one in like August.
We did one before Avatar, after Edge of Eternities.
Okay, so it's been about 6 months. So
Yes.
this originally was about the bans, and then the bans didn't affect us, so we decided to push it to where we had more information, more interesting things to talk about. Uh, and but dodging the banhammer was still a fun subtitle, so we are gonna keep it. Um, just a quick shout out for those that weren't here, 5 minutes ago. Rush just top aided tournament down, still in Texas, right?
Yes.
All right, well, everything is still in Texas if you only drove like 3 hours. Um,
Well, it was 5. Thank you
uh,
very much.
okay, I mean traffic doesn't count. Uh, but yeah, no. So, uh, congrats, buddy. Um, pretty limited uh itinerary today. We're gonna be talking. Um, we were gonna be talking about bands and unbans. We'll probably just say nothing mattered, but otherwise, it's just gonna be talking about updates, quick reflection on the winning folks and their like our place in the meta. Then we're gonna talk about the updates to the Magdanomicon with his show. Um, and that's and then we'll just jump in the Q&A and talk to people. So feel free
Sounds like a
to
plan.
so feel free to drop your questions in the chat, um, and we will gladly get to them. We'll probably interrupt to answer questions in real time, and then we'll have more of a open Q&A segment where people can get up on the stage and ask their questions quickly, if they would like to. So let's talk about our written in stone segment. We're like 10 people away from 3,000 dwarves, which is pretty cool. We have some cool things happening, but I do not like celebrating early. So we are waiting until we hit that number to start celebrating, but expect some announcements around there. Secondly, we're doing I say we, I'm doing a, a community service art bundle with Drew Tucker. We'll talk about that in a few seconds. But that's happening. But everyone that has been winning and crushing it over the last 3 months, congratulations, Chef Phil, Rust, of course, with his a billion wins and tops. Dross, Natalie in the chat. Hello, hello. Thanks for showing up. And I'm sure I know Morgan and Sean, but I do not know them by their Discord name. Um, oh, very good in response. I'll need to add another name to the list. But yeah, so congrats to all the dwarves that have done so well over the last few months. Like this has been a really solid period. It's been a big explosion of growth over the last few months with Magda, but and our numbers don't look as good as I would like because of that. But we're still top 16ing so many events. Like most events have a really strong Magda showing. So
Yeah,
we
for the 44-person event that I went to yesterday, 10th, it was a cut to top 10.
Mhm.
10th place was also another Magna pilot.
Dude, awesome. Love the double up. Um, yeah, we need to get together and have a breakdown of your uh of Dwarven Winter because it's kind of a legendary run. So over the last 6 months, we've had about a 20, not counting the last like week or so, because data comes in a little bit spotty. So I chose to omit it. Um, Over the last 6 months, we've had 20% conversion. In the last 3 months, there's been a 29% conversion. And then in February, just the last month and a half or so, it's been at 24%. So we are, we are at the green. We're in the green like considerably. That's been pretty amazing.
A lot of this is thanks to Rust.
Yeah, I mean, no, Rust and Net, honestly, both of them like together are like probably 40% of Magda's crushing it the last few months. It's been awesome.
Yeah, Natalie did really good at the Invitational too.
Right? I believe they top 16 that or top 8'd, I forget.
Yeah. 15th. Awesome. Congrats again. Aside from
it's really cool.
aside from the pretty great meta numbers, we've got a pretty good like 6 to 8 months coming up in terms of card releases. Like Strixhaven might give us something, and we have The Hobbit, which might be Dwarven Christmas. I'm looking forward to it.
Or it could be Dwarven Depression.
Hey, it's hopium until it's copium, friend.
That's true.
We just don't know which yet.
Dude, the Arkenstone has to be made for us.
Dude, if they either spark the Arkenstone, I will be such a sad panda, right? Like that's my like I'm like, ooh, cool Hobbit. I'm like, but what if it's a 7 mana do nothing? Yeah, the last thing I want to talk about before we get into the primer updates is the AP bundle. I will quickly run through this. On occasion, I will reach out to an artist and say, hey, I have dwarves. They want your stuff. Will you deliver to me and I will deliver to them? And that usually gets more bites than people just like trying to order artist proofs from people directly, because it's a lot less effort on their part to get it all out to us. So I just recently did an Adam Paquette one for Caveron. I'm currently doing a Stalactite Dagger and other Drew Tucker artist proofs purchases right now. That's running until today, tomorrow ish. So if you want an artist proof Stalactite Dagger, he has set aside a full 70 of his 100, I think. And he's willing to sell them to us. And there's still plenty left, so you can jump down into the Dwarven Merchant area to check it out. The prices are here mostly for posterity, for people that see this later. But check out the Dwarven Merchant side of things down on the server, and you will see, what he is offering and what we can do to get you some cool art.
Thank goodness. I reached out to Drew Tucker a lot. I don't want to say a lot, but like at least 2 times, and he ghosted me both times. So
He likes me because my name is also Drew. It's unironically what it is.
yeah,
We greet each other as, hey, other Drew. So
we'll get to the dagger thing in a bit.
yeah, we will talk about Dagger. Trust me. Yeah. So that's happening. If you are interested in it, please go check it out. It is closing today-ish or tomorrow if I get some late interest. But I'll explain what an artist proof is. Basically, when an artist does art, especially for standard products, standard commander, in-universe products, Wizard of the Coast ships them 50 foils and 50 non-foils of the card, which have a white back, not the standard Magic the Gathering back. And there's only 50 of each, and they often go for a premium of the artist signs them, and they will often offer, individualized art on the back of the said proof. And so because these are like, we're talking for, in this case, Stalactite Dagger, we're talking about a common that has no value on the secondary market. It's not a chase card. It's not super exciting, but a 1 of 50 with potentially individualized art or an alteration on it means you have a 1 of 1 or a 1 of 50 plus a 1 of 1 art on the back, which is about as blinging as you can get without literally gilding your deck. So it is a fun side of the hobby to get into if you have expendable income. But like tattoos, if you get one, you will get more. So just keep that in mind, and only get addicted to it if you can afford it. So yeah, check out the Merchant Square. There's a thread for it right now, and it'll be open until tomorrow. So moving on to the reason we're actually here, not to shill for another artist. Keeping the lore. We're talking about the primer updates. So we're gonna go through like the big cards that were added and like a couple of the big changes. We'll run through one by one, and then we might take some time to just look at the primer and see if there's anything else we want to pull out of it. Does that make sense, Joe?
Sure.
Alrighty. So Peters Parker picked a pack of pickled cameras. It is an incredible card. It's searchable by 2 cards in our deck now, right? With Tezzeret and Urza's Saga. And
The confusion you get when you tutor this with Urza's Saga is very high. It's really funny.
It's so wild. It's like it is a tutorable return the favor, and it does all that in a bag of chips. Like and it does it multiple times. You can do it for value with extra mana, and then you can do it to win the game because it has 3 film counters. It's just so good. It just does everything you could possibly want from a 1-drop artifact. Is there any funky stuff we should talk about with this card? Is that we're not going to cover later?
We'll
I
cover
feel like I
some
use
stuff
it
later.
more. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Nope.
No, you go ahead, Rust.
I feel like I use it more to just double
Making
like a
treasures.
tap trigger
Yeah.
than I do to double an activation.
It's the most common way to use the card, and sometimes it's the way that you can get it to resolve is saying, I'll never use it to double activate Magda. Because there
Right.
are people that will counter this. There's a lot of times people will be like, I can't let this resolve, let me mental misstep this. And you're just like, whoa. I would rather you not use that here. I will commit to doing this.
Yep.
And usually that's enough to, get you there.
And
It's not always, but it comes up. It is really interesting as well. The Portal of Phyrexia triggers both the ETB and the upkeep trigger. So you can either fully board wipe someone or you can get multiple things back.
or both.
Being able to, or both, depending on the situation. There have been multiple times where I've been able to get an artifact dwarf and a 1-drop dwarf, which was enough to win me the game. So it's a very versatile card, and we'll go over some of the more interesting ways that it can be used a bit later.
We're going to be talking about Portal to Phyrex or God-Pharaoh statue a little bit, but I just think it's funny that because we can now do the
God-Pharaoh statue loop without using Return the Favor or casting any
exactly.
spells.
Yeah. That just occurred to me. One thing I wanted to mention about the getting the extra treasure from the trigger is that it's even better than just doubling the trigger, because a lot of the inflection point for the game is like the 3 to 6 treasure zone, where people are like, oh no, they can't get this next one, because if they get this next one, it's kind of game over. And and that way you can, if they have to react to a particular treasure, you now get a second treasure that they have to have double interaction for, to not just go over top, which is nice. It's really nice. All right, we'll talk about more about camera later. So I would like you to walk through this one, because you have a better way of framing it.
So Grinding Station originally was in the Magdanomicon as a safety net of sorts, where it allowed you to have a relatively agnostic win condition with your commander, because you can just make treasures and then sacrifice them to mill people out.
Mm-hmm.
You do not need that any longer as far as a backup win condition, because you can use Legion Extruder instead. because both of these cards also solve the problem of what happens if we have a Grafdigger's Cage in play and we need to get rid of it. Because we'll be talking about this a little bit more in the future, but some pilots are not playing the One Ring, and it's a card that may be cut from the Magdanomicon relatively soon. So having a answer to your own Grafdigger's Cage is pretty important. And also the upsides to Legion Extruder over Grinding Station are very high. It gives you another win condition if you don't have access to your Twin Shot Sniper, because it is an ETB that is not on a creature. This can also be doubled by Peter Parker's camera. It allows you to use Pinnacle Monk combo lines without actually having access to Roaming Throne, because you can use Peter Parker's camera to double the triggers. And you can also use the doubled triggers to allow you to get extra copies of your reshuffle spell to put Peter Parker's camera back in your deck. So this allows you to loop things without needing any extra pieces whatsoever. If you don't have access to Roaming Throne or whatever, which was a required part of that combo. And then realistically, the amount of times where I've been like, okay, I can tutor this and remove something from the board is important through Grafdigger's Cage, because Grafdigger's Cage is the most ubiquitous removal, or not removal, or stacks piece that we play. And it covers so many win cons, so many important aspects of many decks. You know, there are a lot of green decks where just two field tutors are how they win the game, whether that's Rog Thras or Timber Pirates or whatever.
Get
right?
in.
So yeah, I mean, Sisei for some things, but depends on the variant of their deck. It
Right.
helps with Chowder a lot.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times they're also just going, hey, I'm gonna go get Teferi and win the game. So it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
But yeah, so there are quite a few other things that you can do with it. You know, you're making a creature that is an artifact that can be used with Stalactite Dagger, which we'll be talking about a little bit later, as well. So even though there are some downsides to the card, there are a lot of upsides. You know, even though it's sorcery speed, it is removal that you can play from hand. And yeah, it covers a lot of the bases that need answers while not sacrificing too much like deck building quality or card quality to do so.
Right.
Because realistically, Grinding Station is a do nothing card unless someone like Imperial Seals.
Right. And yeah, and you just generally don't want to be milling opponents that have Imp Seal. Like the number of decks that have Imp Seal that you also want cards in their graveyard, not high.
And it's also a metagame thing where if they know that you have it out, they're like, okay, well, I have Savines in hand. Let me put Breach into my graveyard because I know you're going to put it there, and then go from there.
Right.
So,
yeah, and then they can get the Soul Read, and you've just cracked a treasure to do that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just a clunkier card. It's it's an A plus B in some other combo we don't run, and otherwise kind of a card.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to some simpler cards, or I guess some less wordy descriptions. Redirect Lightning. The only bad thing about this card is it's the Universes Beyond. Number one draft pick for the Strixhaven Archive reprint right here. That's what I want. Dear God, do I need that? I still like this card, but yeah, no, it's a 1-mana SWAT.
This is just an auto include. SWAT effects are what we want the most. It's some of our best stack interaction, and protecting your commander is one of the most important things. And this helps you deal with the bounce spells and the Swords to Plowshares and stuff that are the most common.
Yep.
Unless you're based anti-ogre build.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention my only good bit. Yeah, no. 5 life matters now somehow, right? It actually does. If you're playing Treasonous Ogre, which you might should be at this point based on Rust's performance with it. That 5 can do something, right? How many times have you won from 1 life, Rust? At least once?
Um, uh, five
There have
five
been
plus time.
there have
Jesus.
been at least 3 or 4 times where 5 life would have lost him the game
Yeah.
that he's told me about. So
Doesn't matter. Still play it. But
yeah,
I mean, one of the games that I won yesterday because of Teresa Soger, I was at 2.
right, exactly. So, start mainboarding Shock, I guess, against Magda. So yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. Redirect Lightning is just a all-star. It'll be in every red plus deck until the end of time, basically. Also, Nat, I wholeheartedly endorse you shamelessly plugging right now because that is adorable.
that is awesome.
I want a Pokemon Universes Beyond just for that. It'll never happen. But anyway, let's move on to the next card. Firdoch Core is like what I would consider like a quasi auto include. Like it's like pretty much there. The only bad thing about it is the number 3.
That's not the only bad thing about it, but we'll talk about that.
I mean, the only bad thing about it that isn't just like, hey, Magda is spooky sometimes. Deck, because a Robo Dwarf that you can tutor another one is just good. Another one that you can tutor in through Graph's Cage is good.
Allegedly.
I mean, it does like all the things it does are like kind of low to the ground in terms of importance. It just happens to be a dwarf that is not a creature, which is pretty cool. Can't be removed as easily. As easily.
I mean, that's not true at all
as
because
easily.
like
The
80% of all removal
reason I
is
bring this up is because like I'm already like super low on the artifact dwarves. I don't think they're that good. I'm basically my list is on the ones that I feel like I'm comfortable. Like they do other things essentially.
Mhm.
But like I don't know. If I'm already
so
low on the artifact dwarves, and then Firdoch Core is an artifact dwarf that's gonna lose me the game.
I mean,
I don't know.
so I know your perspective on that. I just bluntly, we're playing one color. We're almost mono brown sometimes. Like I'm not worried about my opponents thinking I'm scary because I'm playing a draft archetype like mana fixer. Like if that's what loses me the game was already lost because their threat assessment is dog shit, right? That's my problem is like you can't make Magda bad enough to where people that are bad at threat assessment won't see onboard stuff and say, herder, I don't know what the other 14 cards in people's hands do, but I'm scared of this right now. Like, I don't know how you deal with that outside of just saying it exists.
the problem is, while you are correct, you're also incorrect because in
A lot
the
of the times. So sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off. A lot of the times when you're in that sort of situation, you either have to sandbag it, and because a lot of the times whenever I do my wins, I'm yanking the rug out from underneath my opponents because they weren't expecting me to win that turn.
Sure.
and like the other thing is because everything is on board. If you already have a board state and it is a turn normally when this comes down, turn 3 or turn 4, where this is going to allow you to just win the game, it is very hard to get this to resolve because it's counterable by almost everything in the format. So, yes, it is also susceptible to bounces, which is again 80% of the removal in the format.
Sure.
And it is very awkward politically because yes, you can offer to like not win with clock with it, and that's done a lot of work for me personally. But there's still inherent value that people just don't want you to have.
I hear that.
And yeah, I mean, like this says, it raises the DEFCON levels more than any artifact dwarf that we have because it is harder to interact with if they do have creature-based removal. But the other thing is creature-based removal still shuts us off because Magda can be removed, and it's usually the target that gets removed anyway. So there's positives and negatives. Personally, I think that this card is good enough to play. We don't have enough win the game cards as it is. And if it's a mana rock, it can go in over something like a Relic of Legends or whatever, depending on how you want to build your list personally. So, yeah, there's a lot of upsides, there's a lot of downsides, and it's going to come down to personal preference more so than anything else. And there are a lot of players that just are going to jam and not care that this is going to get countered or whatever a lot of the time. And then you're going to have players like Rust that the political value of a card and the situations that it puts you in have a higher value to them than others.
Yeah, I think especially if you were considering losing Relic of Legends, this is just like more win the game spell instead of a value spell. Or if you want to lose a vehicle for an artifact dwarf effectively, like it's one of the worst vehicles, and this is one of the worst artifact dwarves. It just depends on what kind of density you're looking for on either side of that. But I'm not going to get used to not running. I'm not going to get used to not running Relic of Legends because I anticipate adding 3 legendary dwarves to my deck.
Copium.
That's copium. I am convinced we will get a two mana red dwarf with legendary text. But
this is kind of something I want to bring up
What's up?
because it's very similar. So there's a lot of Sisay in my local meta, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of them are pretty well respected on the deck.
Mhm.
They have the same opinion about Tam that I do about Firdoch Core.
Tam.
The blue, the 2-drop from Lorwyn Eclipse that you can tap to give another permanent all 5 colors.
I'm sorry, give another permanent all 5 colors makes a permanent all colors.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Basically, because it is a instant.
It gives them access to their whole deck.
Gotcha. Okay, that's pretty cool. So basically, they're saying if this happens and I'm not, and like basically they have to be completely shields down, otherwise they're just going to counter it anyway, and then the next person's going to win. So if you have some win on site cards, they need to be creatures, so they're not countered by literally every counter spell.
No. More so of like, this card is so good it lost me the game.
Oh man, I wish other decks had to deal with that, or more decks, I should say. I don't know.
The decks that do deal with it all have counter spells. We do not.
Right? No, it's fair. We have 2. There are 3. I run all 3.
Arguably.
I run all 3. Which you should. Eat your vegetables. Run Tybalts.
But like realistically, this is the card that most people should be playing.
I think so too.
I think that the more entrenched pilots, like there's going to be pros and cons, and some of them are going to play it and some of them aren't. So, it's something we'll have to see if it sticks in the deck based on what we get over the next year.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Like there is a definite world where this card falls out, and I'll be happy that I only got it signed instead of getting art on it. Yeah, so
you can always get art on it at a con sometime.
Oh yeah, I mean I plan to do that anyway. All right, let's move on to how we're approaching mana generation. This is much more of an older change at this point. I feel like anyone that's been looking at the primer or lately listening to you talk about your thoughts on the deck over the last like 4 to 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, they already know this. But mana good. Mana real good.
Yeah. The problem is though, like before my take was very much I want permanent mana.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want one-time use mana.
Yep.
But the problem is as we settle back into mid-range hell that has a splash of Ral and Rogsai and stuff, you still want to be fast. You still want to have explosive plays, and especially if you're, moving on to things like Treasonous Ogre or whatever, you want that mana available as early as possible.
Yep.
So whether it's one use or not doesn't matter. It all comes down to, what you want and how that ramps you there. Like
Hmm.
stuff like Mox Amber is strong, but it requires your commander. And as we've gone off of more of the legends, such as Gimli and Gloin, like it is not online enough without Magda in play to where going back on the quote unquote fast mana or explosive mana package is much better than reliance on board mana.
Especially now that we have at least a couple of 3-drop makes mana on the turn it comes down cards that we are main decking and are pretty close to solid includes like Relic and Firdoch.
Yeah. And
And
like there's so many of our cards are 3 or 4 mana that just win the game or give us access to whatever we need to, that like they are our best cards.
yeah,
So having the extra mana early is powerful.
yeah,
These are also very good in lists that still want to play the moon package because it does give you access to them on turn 2.
yep.
So
So someone we have a couple questions about mana.
so Mox Diamond is a card that is very bad for our deck. And I will say that unabashedly because
Yeah,
I don't care if you enjoy the card. The math is so bad on this card that your feels good about the card is not my concern.
uh,
We are on 24 lands, so we don't draw cards. There's no Ristic Study, there's no nothing. So if you don't have Mox Diamond in your opening hand and a very specific amount of lands, that card sits in your hand and does nothing. The only time that this is a viable card mid game is if you get wheeled into it. So there aren't enough opening hands where Mox Diamond actually quote unquote gets you there,
yeah.
versus just taking it a turn slower.
I,
And
I
usually taking it a turn slower is where we want to be for the most part anyway, because you don't want to be winning as soon as possible in a lot of cases because you want to win second.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say any change you make to your deck, that to improve the chances of Mox Diamond being better, make your deck objectively worse because it makes Pyrokinesis worse. And Pyrokinesis is a not necessarily an auto include, but it's one of the better free interaction spells that we can run. And uh, having red cards with our MDFCs instead of mountains, bluntly, is just way better. Also, the utility and like 1 in 100 games for the utility of the MDFCs is better than running mountains for the occasional like bonkers start in with a diamond. Um, there was another question about workshop. I feel like the decision came up that you kind of just run a card like City of Traders or Crystal Vein in Shop's place, and it feels better most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, City of Traders has been a staple to the deck now for almost a year,
Yeah,
and um, the upside on shop is still very high depending on what your artifact count is,
yeah,
but the types of hands that you need for it to actually go crazy are also very rare. So if you like playing the lottery, sure, go for it, but it's also one of those things where you're playing it as a spell card more than you are a land card.
yeah,
Um, and you just have to approach it as a ritual for artifacts that may put you off Magda for a turn or whatever. It's usually better in lists that are more focused on slowing the game down and still stacks oriented, which Rust and I have been taking the deck away from.
yep. I more or less concur there, and I was a big shop advocate for a long time. And even as my deck has shifted a little bit more towards the brown side of the mono red spectrum, I still don't feel like I want it. Um, um, let's go talk about my favorite new card.
Stalactite Dagger is insane.
It is better than for like when just for the record when Firdoch Core came out, we were like auto include, third best Robo Dwarf, talking, and Stalactite Dagger was like, we'll test it, flip that.
And then there was that EDH rec thing where they did a talk about Magda, or they looked at some cards and they're like, we did not expect Magda to play this card. What is going on? As opposed to Firdoch Core. But the upsides to this card, because you can copy its ETB with Peter Parker's camera, which is kind of cute, but it's 2 colorless mana to make you a dwarf that also leaves an equipment behind that gives creatures that it is equipped to all creature types. And this is important for anything that is an artifact. So if you're casting your clown car for X equals more than 1, because you don't want that thing mental misstepped, if you're making one of those, the clown robots, this can turn it into an artifact dwarf. This turns your vehicles into an artifact dwarf. This enables battered golem lines. This in play makes your Zorn able to tap for treasures. There's a lot of huge upsides to this card, and it also has the other thing that you can do where if you just want to protect Magda from OBM ETBs, you can just attach it to Magda and the all creature type part doesn't matter. There are some combo lines that this enables. We'll be talking about some things later potentially.
Yeah.
And it's very, very versatile, and it's something that most people are not ever going to counter.
Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah,
people are not spending a counter spell on this
Yeah.
no,
because they're
because
like, because all they care about is you have a 2 mana dwarf.
you have a 2 mana dwarf, and then literally in one of my games the other day, they go, I could counter this, but you have to equip anyway, and if I have removal, I just remove it in the remove something in response to the equip. So I'm fine with it resolving.
Right. The
And
the
so in
Go ahead.
one of my top 4 games that I played, Atali went crazy, but they couldn't win. And part of Atali going crazy was they exiled my Clock of Omens. But I had Dagger in my hand. So I get to a point where I cast the Dagger, and the other 2 blue decks read it, let it resolve, and then I tutor Battered Golem into play with a vehicle, and then make infinite treasures that way. And both of the blue players go, "Did you know it could do that?" And then show me 5 counter spells.
I love it. Yeah, no. The understated combo card works for, until I guess everyone here starts doing it, right? And then it becomes less of a secret. But of course, we will have more and more and more of these like nice little like A plus B options that just kind of like go off out of nowhere that they can't counter us all is going to be the real answer to this deck at some point. It's
Right, but
um
there's also why are you going to counter this? I can just say I'll never equip it to a vehicle, right?
right.
Like you can use very specific warning when you are trying to resolve this so that they're not as likely to spend their counter because it doesn't really make sense in a lot of cases to do
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Um and the last time I'll mention it because this card is an auto include now and will be for a while, if not for in perpetuity. You can get a blingy version of it down in the Merchant Square if you haven't heard. Running that until tomorrow. Let's move on.
Okay.
So 3 mana dwarves are not our favorite thing right now. Um, even the ones that turn on relic.
Yeah, like Gimli is very strong if it ever connects, but I had it connect maybe 3 times over a year of playing it,
Yeah.
and as we're getting more and more things that we want to be playing, these cards just don't do enough for their mana cost,
Yep.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Like maybe in like a more mono brown, like stacks heavy version, Gloin makes a lot more sense. But there's 2 of us out there that are doing that version of the deck right now, and I'm sure it's in that list, but it's not going to be in the Nomicon or most normative list at this point.
Right. I mean, the thing is, we just want to be doing other things. We want to be going faster. We want to be having redundancy for other things that these cards just don't do anything for.
Right.
So, like, mono brown means that we're an artifact deck more than we are a dwarf deck in a lot of cases. But yeah, if we get things like one-drop vehicles, or if we get things moving forward, like more interaction or more win the game cards, like these were going to come out anyway, so it's better to get it over with and put something in that has some more consistent value, I guess, instead.
Yeah, 100%. There's not much else to say about these guys. They're very hit or miss when they do things, and they're expensive.
They're very polarizing, but when you do something with Gimli, there's a lot of dopamine, especially with roaming thrown in play, and you're just like,
Oh yeah,
so many treasures.
yeah. It is like hitting the lottery, but you do have to hit the lottery for that, guys. I don't know if you know about that's how lotteries work. Um, so let's talk about Rog Thras's D-grid that we run for them. GPS.
God-Pharaoh's statue was a card that I took out of the Nomicon before last January, and then I put it back in after experiencing like 3 or 4 games within 2 tournaments where I'm just like, I needed this card, or I felt like I needed the card. The problem is it's too slow, and you need to play this proactively, not really ever as a reactive tutor. And it's something that scares a lot of people anyway. They don't want you having an activation because you're going to stop their turbo deck. If you're playing things like a damping sphere or whatever, you have other options available to you. This isn't a requirement, right? The deck used to also function on a lockdown strategy using things like um, Null Rod and God-Pharaoh statue and the moon effects, where if you were able to put 2 of these together and generate a board state that was hard enough for your opponents to play through, that you would just win the game.
Yep.
But in general, the community has experienced the sad truth that defensive tutors don't win games. They either draw your game or lose you the game.
Mm-hmm.
And this card is quite literally the poster child for that fact. Like, it either comes into play, protects your opponent's win because they're playing Rogthras, and Thrasios wins by using its activations more than anything else, or it comes into play just long enough for someone to bounce it, and then the person who doesn't bounce it wins on top of the other player that bounced it. That's happened 4 of the last 5 times that I played the card.
Right.
Um, and it, Thrasios X decks and Kinnan decks are very prominent in the meta, and it is very bad into both of those decks specifically. And if 20% of your meta game is going to be something with Thrasios or Kinnan or whatever, you don't want cards that are dead, especially dead in hand. And 6 CMC is also very difficult to cast. You do lose the fact that you can't win through the One Ring because you can't use the end step, life thing. But that only matters on the last turn of the game if it's your own turn. And we do have some ways to get around Angel's Grace, which God-Pharaoh's statue also helped us deal with. But that's not really necessary. Like, the One Ring in general is only really seen in very few decks. You'll see it in Wheeliod, you'll see it in Derebi, you'll see it in things like Shurikai. You'll see some Magda players playing it, but the card in general is slowly seeing its way out of the format outside of decks that um, really kind of need it.
Yeah.
Or optimize using it the most.
Right. And I would say it goes even further. We are playing now we're playing a deck that is running Vault, running Grim Monolith in some lists, running Relic, having Firdoch, having access to mid-range mana, right? Like we are in casual mana town, right? And we still don't want this 6-drop on our deck. We would much rather just play Go-Go, or like Go-Go and Knuckles are the kind of cards that killed this card, because it just seemed we were just given better options to just do more things, and this card just doesn't do enough to need that slot.
Yeah, and like I said, it's a speed bump now that a majority of the deck doesn't layer well with it stacks wise.
I mean,
Like,
yeah,
I watched a Rog Thrash player yesterday. He got his Gaia's Cradle exiled by Ragavan. Um, had enough mana, like was just making enough raw natural mana every turn to cannon through his entire deck, like to where he was seeing the same card at the end of all of his activations, and then just still had a Seedborn Muse.
Yeesh.
Like it was upwards of a couple hundred mana.
That's
Yeah, so
seems
like
like they should have won the game.
there's so
I
many
mean,
decks
they did. Like
that are just so high resource now. Like you have Rog Ishai, you have all these high mana decks, you have there's just so many things that can easily play around this that the amount of board states where it ends up being the correct decision to tutor this is just so few and far between, and it needs to be your first tutor layered with something else. Otherwise, it just doesn't do enough.
Right. It honestly acts like a D grid for the Kinnan Plus decks. So like, Ral gets shut off, and now Ral can't even use his one defensive tutor to stop someone else from winning because you've shut him off, and Kinnan just like,
I
lol,
mean,
what's mana?
we have other answers to Rel. Like we have Disruptor Flute naming the backside so they cannot ever ult.
Right.
We have Damping Sphere. We have um other things, right?
No,
So
100%.
it- that's the other thing is that as time goes on, you have access to other cards that solve problems. And this is why Digger's Cage is so good,
Mm-hmm.
is it solves so many problems.
Yep.
And it deals with multiple decks at the same time. So like, yeah, in most of the cases where God-Pharaoh statue is going to win you the game, you're just as likely to be able to win naming a Lion's Eye Diamond with your Disruptor Flute or just having a Digger's Cage in play or whatever.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just like anything that's lower to the ground just feels better, and it deals with most of the same problems without creating like the problematic asymmetric staxing situation that stuff like Null Rod and GPS ultimately do.
Yeah.
All right, last card. This one was removed a long time ago, but people may still need to know why. Um, uh,
So we got rid of Seed Smash.
mhm,
OBM is a problem for our deck, obviously, but the amount of times where this card get used as defend Magda is few and far between.
mhm.
It is almost always used
I think I
as
did it less than 5 times.
as destroy target basalt monolith and destroy target time sieve or candelabra or whatever. Like it is a powerful card because it does have split second. The problem is even though Kinnan is seeing a resurgence, they're not necessarily our problem to deal with, and we have enough answers to Kinnan that can stop them from winning in that case if we have activations and stuff anyway. So like this is not something we can tutor for. It's very bad as far as consistency goes.
Yeah,
And that's the most important thing that we want for our cards.
the high end for this card is your idea of where it saves Magda from something specific. But if your like primary reason for running a card like in your head is like a defensive timing related situation, like the number of occurrences is going to be naturally lower. So reactive uses are going to be more constrained than proactive uses. And that's what makes this card particularly, tenuous. And I guess at this point, like, not, I wouldn't even consider it. I would probably run. I've cut other interaction since this card. I've cut this card, so it's like probably instant card number 3 or 4.
Like card 105 at this point.
Yeah, yeah, easily, if not higher. Like I feel like we forget about some permanents that we kind of like sometimes.
Right.
Um, so someone asked a question I wanted to get to before we moved on to the testing cards. Someone was mentioning, um, don't we want other players running Cage instead of us? since it doesn't do anything to advance our game plan. So stacks never really advances your game plan unless your game plan is like the purest form of attrition. And sometimes stacks hurts you a little bit, and sometimes stacks hurts you not at all, and it's truly asymmetrical. But Cage is a 1-mana card that can be tutored by 2 other cards, and it turns off one of the like premium win cons of the format, and a lot of value generating tutors. As green continues to get better, it only gets better in stopping green 2 battlefield tutors. And realistically, it costs us not nothing, but almost nothing to run.
We can play through it is the thing.
Yeah.
And you really have to like understand just how debilitating it is for so many decks.
Yeah.
You can't win with Breach. You can't win with anything from the top of library. You can't win with anything that puts creatures into play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's almost every deck in the format.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah. So, and the other thing too is like, don't we want other players running this? The only other deck that's going to be playing it is like Tivit.
Yeah, Tivit, Yuriko, the blue-black X decks that don't have green are going to run it. And
I don't even think Yuriko would run it.
Some Yurikos do play it. You'll see it in any of the Esper lists that are mid-range. So you'll see it in Marnius. You'll see it in Tivit. You'll see it in
That's
Dishkin.
not necessarily true.
You'll see it in some Marnius lists.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Because
Like
it
the
depends on
last 2 Marniuses that I played against played it. As an example.
Here's a
So, like,
question: did those Marnius decks win?
yes, but they both won those games.
Oh wow! I guess I'll shut the fuck up then.
Stopping people from winning with lines that go through Cage usually means Marnius is set up, because Marnius just needs to exist to win eventually. Marnius is Esper Cannon in that kind of sense.
Yeah.
Good.
It's just a card that is too ubiquitous in how it deals with the format that like we can't not play it. And because we have so many answers to it, if you're playing the deck with the tools that are in the Nomicon and stuff, then you have answers to your own. You should have answers to opponents.
Yep.
And like Russ said, it's only going to be in 3 to 5 decks, and
those
your
decks do
chance
not
of
see a
being
lot of play.
yeah, they're not very common.
Yeah. 5-mana 3-color commanders are just kind of rough at this point. In general, I mean, they're still good, but like they're good in the context where you're not forced to play control for like 5 turns because there's too many like solid turbo decks, and then the mid-range decks already, like the mid-range turbo leaning decks are already set up and doing their thing. Like there's just a lot of things going against those decks, which is another reason you won't see Gravedigger's Cage doing so well. So testing cards, we'll give these a nice little look-see. Let's go left to right and leave our favorite for last. Grim Monolith, how are we feeling about it right now? I mean, I know
It's
it
a
Big man.
3 big mana that like all of our win the game cards are 3 and 4 CMC.
Yep.
So like the other thing is Magda is a lightning rod, so
Mhm.
having 3 CMC that you or 3 mana pips that you can put out early that ends up coming into play later in the game, even if it doesn't need to be used
Yep.
at the time, can be quite useful.
Yep.
It's not a card that you need to run, but in turbo slanting variants of the build, it is doing quite well.
Yep. Cursed Mirror. For me,
So you said you wanted to go left or right.
It is left to right. Cursed Mirror is it not what?
It is to the right of it, but it is
Yeah.
written down.
Yeah, it is. Never mind. We'll just do.
Cursed Mirror.
To be on the same page, I also thought we were going to talk about Guild Artisan next.
Oh my god. We're talking about Guild Artisan next. Let's go. Guild Artisan.
This card is really funny with Roaming Throne
Right. Oh dear
because
lord.
Oh, cool.
it gives a trigger to your commander. This card just reads get to 5 treasures on turn 3 no matter what, as
Mhm.
long as you go Dwarf Magda into this. But outside of that, it doesn't do a whole lot. I have tested it a bit. It is very powerful in the situations where it does its thing, but it is also a card that has forced draws almost more than any other card that I've played outside of Artifact Dwarves. So if your opponents kind of don't want you having activations, and they do have removal, this card doesn't ever do anything, and a majority of the time we don't want to be going to combat to make our treasures to begin with. So there's enough downside to where I probably am not going to play the card, but um, it certainly is very powerful in the fact that it does get you to 5 very quickly.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah,
when it doubles with Roaming Throne is really funny.
Oh yeah.
the issue that I had with it when I was playtesting it was that it basically almost always forced me to get Portal as my first activation, and I think I'd rather jump off a mountain than put that card into play. So
Yeah, there's so many things currently in the format where Portal just gets copied and you lose the game.
Mm-hmm.
That even though Portal is a very powerful card against a lot of decks in the format, there is still a very high downside to playing it and it being on the field. So when
like
someone,
my wish list for this year is for them to print a card that lets me take Portal out of my deck.
Smog, please.
Like I don't even want a replacement. I just want something that I'm like, this is so good I have to cut Portal.
Um my bet is on Bomber. I want an Earthquake Dwarf. As he's big boy. I'm gonna be calling these shots for the next like 6 months, just for the record. Because
um,
I'm so excited.
so the next
Mhm.
card
Yeah.
is Rite of Flame, and this is
Yeah.
just fast mana. It's
Yeah.
the same sort of thing as playing your Lotus Petal,
Mm-hmm.
right? On turn 1. It's just you want access to more mana earlier, especially if you're on the card to the right of it, which is Treasonous Ogre, and I think you said we'll leave that to last. So
Yeah, well yeah, now the list is broken. Thanks.
you're welcome.
All right. Curse Mirror.
Let's go over Curse Mirror. So Curse Mirror is a card that's been in and out of the list for a long time. At least since the removal of Dockside.
Yeah.
It has the upside of copies Bowmaster. It has the upside of copies Gilded Drake.
Mm-hmm.
It is permanent mana after it is done its thing. So there is some upsides there. There's also the upside that it copies a Roaming Throne or a Zorn that lets you combo off in a way where you don't need Plundering Barbarian to do the thing. Which is not irrelevant. There's also other use cases for this where you're able to give a creature haste without using Go-Go.
Yep.
So giving your Dwarven Armorer haste so that you can put something in the graveyard to put it back into your deck that you need to win the game. There are some other use cases as well. It's just there's enough use cases that it's still potentially worth playing. I'm currently personally playing it, and I've not really done a whole lot with it, but the few times that I have done things with it, it's been quite powerful.
I think there's a lot of understated value in just like for example, let's say you only have one red. You just
Yeah, where
play
you're
this as like I make a treasure and then I just have a second red mana rock. laying around.
Yeah, it's 3 mana Strike It Rich that sticks around and makes your mana. Like, that's the floor of this card in most cases, which
Mhm.
is still okay.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then
And
similarly, that's the floor for Molten Duplication as well.
And well, hold on, there's one more thing I want to talk about Curse Mirror with. So
Sure.
more and more decks I've seen recently are playing Deadpool. You need more effects to get around Deadpool.
Oh yeah, so you just copy their Deadpool and then get your Magda back,
Or
basically.
you can copy your commander
Yeah, and then get the text
and
back.
So the lost text
and try
box
to
isn't a copyable effect or copyable
yeah,
element.
because the text box is not copyable by layers.
Cool. Okay. Fun fact, people.
So basically, if your text box gets switched and then you curse mirror your commander, you get to put your commander back into the command zone so it doesn't get Deadpooled again, and then you also just get a copy of your commander for the turn.
Yep. I mean,
with its regular text box.
which you can tap.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was the only reason I won one of my games yesterday. My activation got stifled, my commander got Deadpooled, and my curse mirror got bounced 3 times all in the same turn cycle.
What were you playing against?
Sisay.
Was it?
That's where Deadpool would come from in most cases.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it was Firelord Azula stifled me, Sisay Deadpooled me, and then Jin Sakai debounced my mirror 3 times.
Damn, that's rough.
I mean, I won that turn, so
Yeah, and then Molten Duplication is basically the same thing, but for your own creatures.
Yeah.
It gives you an artifact dwarf. It copies, a mana vault if you need it as a ritual. It copies a Portal to Phyrexia if you want an extra ETB. It copies a treasure. There's a lot of things in versatility for the card.
Yeah.
Especially in more turbo oriented or turbo leaning, because I am still of the opinion that Turbo Magda doesn't exist. I think there is turbo leaning,
Mm-hmm.
but we are not consistently getting Magical Christmas Land unless you are Rust.
Yep.
ho ho ho.
The luck lives in the hat.
But it is quite versatile. It's won me some games since putting it back into my own personal list, and it's something worth talking about.
All right.
And then we have Village.
Village Pillagers. We've had a really nice discussion about it, and we'll try to truncate that into something more digestible. My initial thoughts on the card is that if you're running the previous 2 cards, if you are keen on dealing with a Bant plus meta, a very creature heavy meta, Temur, Bant, all those like Gaia's Cradles decks, and dealing with those effectively and getting some value out of it. And you're also running like the mid-range mana package that we've been talking about, like powering out these 2 and 3 mana generating cards. Village Pillagers looks attractive because it converts into treasures while also speed bumping those decks that are very very 1-for-1 in the way you would deal with them otherwise outside of Portal. But there are some significant downsides, which I will kick it over to the squad to just lay that out.
Are getting copied bad.
I do love clones.
Clone bad.
Clones.
Our clones are good. Their clones are bad. Ban other clones.
Yeah, there are a lot of other clones in the format right now, and this blows us out. It also gives the person blowing us out access to mana, which we don't want them to have.
Real quick,
And
my contention is that slow mana is sometimes not mana. Tap treasures for us means win the game. Tap treasures to them means they may not exist for another turn cycle. That's important, but it doesn't always matter.
sure, but if your opponent's not smart enough to politically use their words when copying this to get another turn, then they're just bad at Magic.
Sure, that's probably accurate. If you are cloning a board wipe spell and not getting another
To
turn
deal
out of
with the
it,
Magda.
yeah,
Yeah.
then you probably didn't use your words. I want this
So,
card to
like,
be good.
there is a lot of upsides, right? It does just read 5 mana, usually make you 3 or more treasures. But the other problem is that even if you are on a more turbo leaning list and you have more mana available to you, getting to 5 mana using double red means you're almost always using a treasure for this.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going down a treasure, you're going +2, and sometimes that's enough, sometimes it's not.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's important is that there are X2s in the format, like Timna, Kinnan, etc. And if yours doesn't kill them, the copy will. So if this gets copied, not only are they killing your board, but they're also killing the rest of the creatures on the field that are left with -1 counters on them already,
Yep.
which gives them even more mana. So it's a very feast or famine card.
Agreed.
And um, moving forward to cards that mostly feast.
Well, I do want to. Last thing I want to say is that
Yeah.
the kind of Gadrak shaped upside of attacks being very wonky and blocking being very wonky after this card comes down is not something to completely write off, because trading means treasures, right, for anything that was there already. So people can't
Right.
block, people can't attack into you, stuff like that.
If
It's
you don't have a vehicle, there's definitely slightly more upside. I will agree to that.
Yeah. But that said, getting blown up by a clone does suck. Handing your opponent the tools to your own destruction is not a fun time.
We get blown out by people cloning our Portal to Phyrexia enough that I don't want to do that a second time every game
That's true.
or risk it. So
And
like
this poor
that's another reason why like Portal is something that Rust and I are like, maybe this card isn't as good as we want it to be, but it's still a necessary evil at the moment.
give me a smog.
Sorry.
Give me a smog
I'm
that
dealing with
kills
I'm dealing with a bot that got let loose.
on the
I
server.
see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for doing your Robo Dwarf smashing duty. Appreciate it.
So the last card is Treasonous Ogre.
Yeah.
This is a card that Rust had played in the past and was not super high on, but it did the thing. And
So
as the deck has
when
gotten,
I sorry, go ahead.
I'll let you talk about it first.
So I played this card like 2 years ago, year and a half, maybe. No, it was probably closer to 2.5 years. Like it's been a long time. And I really liked the card back then because it helped transition from I have a low resource, like I have high resources in my hand, but low resources in play. And it completely flipped that. It was like, all right, now I just get to cast everything.
Yeah.
The problem that I had with it that led me to cut it was that I would pay all of my life casting my things and then not win the game.
We're just winning the game easier now.
Winning the game is insanely easier.
Yeah.
Because you would like.
This was before Roaming Throne that you were playing this.
Yes, it was before Roaming Throne got printed. And Knuckle, obviously Knuckles, but like there are so many different cards now that if you are able to transition, like, I mean, there are some games that I play with Treasonous Ogre that I'm like, yeah, I'll pay 9 life to make 3 mana to cast this Sculpting Steel. It'll be a treasure past turn,
Mm-hmm.
like for value. And then
Mhm.
other games, I go, yeah, pay 12 life, cast this Roaming Throne. Oh no, it got countered. Pay 12 life, cast this Go-Go. And then my opponents are just like, they can't answer everything if I do it all in the same turn.
Right. And if they do, then they just lose to the next player and you get a draw out of it anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Someone asked, is Ogre now more viable? Yeah. No, like a lot more. Like,
So I want to say there were 5 Magda players at the 44-person event I went to yesterday.
mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure all 5 of them were on Troger.
Well, I mean, after your run, right? using it the last 3 months. I don't see how they don't. Like, and you've credited it so damn often.
So the game that I was mentioning earlier, where I got Deadpooled, my commander activation got stifled, like all that stuff. The only reason I won that game is because every time that the Jin Sakai player was bouncing my curse mirror, I was paying 9 life to Treason Soga to recast it.
That's funny. Yeah.
And I had a Caveron, so I was still making treasures. Like he was essentially ramping me into another activation because he just didn't understand I was making more treasures every time I did it.
And the guy was just had a button. He was not willing to not push.
Yeah, he was like, "Stop having your commander." And I'm like, what if I just got it anyway?
Mm-hmm. All right.
And so
Yeah.
another thing that people kind of bring up is once people realize that we're playing Treason Soger, they start hitting us instead, which makes the Treason Soger worse. Which, sure, sometimes can happen, but a lot of the times, it's never in a point where like 2 or 3 mana makes a huge difference. Sure, there are some of the games that I play where I pay 39 life into it and then I get blown out by something. But a lot of the times if you make the leap of you should be hitting Tim Necron because they play Adnaz or Necropotence, most people agree with that.
Yeah.
It's like do you care about do you care about me having a non-tutorable 4-drop creature, or do you care more about the turbo deck having, you know, like a tutorable 2 cards that, say they win the game on them. Mm.
Yeah. I'm going on it.
It's a card that has
Yeah.
been performing well for basically everyone that's been playing it. So, yeah, the Namicon's going to see some very stark changes going into the summer. Most likely, this will be one of the cards that will make its way in.
Yep. All right. That's cards, mostly. Now we're gonna talk about our favorite topic, politics. So, to set the stage a little bit here, um, sometimes people like think the king make or draw like sudden death moment in Swiss games are kind of unavoidable, but we do in fact have tools that we can use both politically and like logistically in our deck to navigate situations where someone says no draw time and they're like, how about we give you an opportunity for a win? I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and we're going to reset the game state back to here, and then we can continue playing, and we can still push for wins. So, oh, someone asked if we were going to try check out Chrome Dome. I don't even remember what that card
Card bad.
does.
Card bad. I'm not even going to go into more. Just card bad.
All right, cool. So the overarching point here is that when you are presented with like a forced draw situation, and you have the opportunity to push for a win, but not for said, forced draw, someone can interact with you and stop your win. You can politic around it and say, "Hey, I'm going to do these games actions to stop the mutually assured destruction situation, so the other person can't win, and then I'm going to reset my board back to." A agreeable spot, which will usually include you getting some value out of it, not a win, and not even necessarily presenting a win, but at least it's not a forced draw. So let's talk about that more. Show, take it over, bud.
So the most common situation you're going to have is you have 5 treasures, a robo dwarf, and someone goes, "I have removal," and you don't have enough things to just go over the top or SWAT or whatever in hand. So they're like, "I'm going to attempt to draw the game here because Rogthras has fucking 9 creatures and they're 1 card away from winning the game." Um, and you're like, "Okay, this is definitely a shitty situation. If I get blown out here, whatever, and then we're going to punt or lose to the Rogthras. But you don't have to accept the draw here. Like Drew said, we can reset the game to the point where we want, as long as we have access to infinite treasures. And because of Peter Parker's camera, we can use the ability of Plundering Barbarian to essentially make the board state into whatever we want, minus dealing with lands, while also dealing with our own stuff and being able to put it back into our deck with Bark Farm Harvester or whatever, right? So we don't lose anything by doing this, because the last thing that ends up happening on the stack is whatever it is being put into the graveyard. So your opponents might be like, okay, well, I'm not comfortable with this because of blah, blah, blah. You're going to have X amount of treasures. The important thing about Magda is that Magda can fail to find, so you can just get rid of all of your treasures.
Yep.
So you can put yourself into a board state where you have an activation to deal with the next person. You can deal with their onboard presence if there's something like a Rogthras or whatever, where you're getting rid of all of their creatures. And that's basically it. You are able to put the game into whatever state that you want. You're able to have access to stacks pieces that would potentially lose the game or make it harder for an opponent to win, or at least have an activation to allow you to get that, where that is the only thing that you're allowed to get. Otherwise, those treasures kind of go away. So there's a lot of political value for situations like this. And you do get to barter with some incremental value. Like,
Mhm.
I'm going to get an artifact land. Part of this is going to put a liquid metal torque into play, so you're going to get a mana rock out of it. And then I'm going to get a random dwarf that's not an artifact dwarf. And if you are so worried about me having an artifact dwarf, I will put Clock of Omens in my graveyard and leave it there, so that I'm at least required to, spend mana to put it back into my deck or whatever. There's a lot of ways that you can take it. Certain players are going to require different concessions.
Mhm.
And then other times you're going to be able to use your words to generate a board state that allows you to win the game. So you have to be very comfortable playing by the word of the deal and being very specific as to what you are going to do. Because spirit of the deal in these sort of situations will lose you games. So that is something you have to be very comfortable with, is doing exactly what you say and being able to articulate exactly what you're going to do in a meaningfully speedy manner. Otherwise, this takes too long.
Yeah.
Once you get to the point where you're able to loop things properly, there's nothing your opponents can do about it, and it is something that you can shortcut.
Yep.
So getting to that point is actually pretty quick, which I'll explain in a minute.
Yep.
But the downside is just how long sometimes this conversation can take. So this is very, very important in top 16 games, and it is marginally important in Swiss, where you still will get value depending on when the game actually is having this sort of situation.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a lot of times where you're just able to leverage your activation with a potential win into not a draw.
Something that I wanted to mention, I'm a big believer in player aids and card representations when discussing politics, to help give your opponents a visual representation, because you're so on board anyway. They're looking at your board, they're trying to think about the possibilities, and they might just like shake their head and say, I can't think hard enough about what your board's going to look like, so I'm just going to say no and fuck you. That kind of
Yeah.
stuff can happen
And
because your opponents can't think about the deck in the same way you can. So this is me pitching to you guys maybe opportunities to use something like an infinite token, and just a dry erase marker and some infinite tokens can represent the board state as you would expect it after the deal, to say here's what it's going to look like. These cards are going to be gone. These cards are going to be here. And this is going to be the graveyard. And if you can quickly um, represent what you're talking about, they can be more comfortable and be more agreeable.
But also to Natalie's question, if you have infinite treasures, how could you lose again? You
You
don't
can't.
have infinite treasures. That's part of this whole thing, is that you're agreeing to not have infinite treasures and putting your combo engine back in your deck at that point.
Yep.
So that you actually continue the game rather than just having the draw or losing.
Yeah, that's basically it. You're just you're deal making so that you can get reset to where you were at plus some value.
Yeah, like if someone's going to oppo you, or if someone's going to do whatever, there are plenty of things that you can do.
Mhm.
But this is mostly for, you know, in situations where Magda is going to get removed in response to you having a board state where you can win. Obviously, you're going to get your activation, and you can say, "Well, I'm forced to do this here," where you can go, "Hey, if you're trying to leverage XYZ, I can deal with another problem while you can still hold that interaction for if I try to push, because this particular combo is, you know, vulnerable at this particular juncture,
Mhm.
and I will not leave myself in a position where um, I'm able to win the game, right? So like it it really depends on how you word things and what you're, you know, going to be willing to do. It You're fine. Like, this has come up in probably 6 or 7 games for me in the past 4 months. So it is something that is important to understand how to do.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you are at the mercy of your opponents and what they think. And like, I had a game the other day where where I was able to do this. I knew that my opponent had a Final Fortune, and I was trying to explain to my other opponent that was trying to do an instant speed uh, board wipe. I forget the fucking name of the green black one.
Uh,
Um,
uh, Ritual, Culling Writ.
yeah, Calling Ritual. Um, and because that would still blow me out, and they didn't quite understand where I was going with it, and this is a player I played with before, and I was like, you trust me, right? And he's just like, I think this is still what I need to do. And after the game, when I had more thoroughly explained exactly what I meant, he was like, "Oh no, I definitely should have let you do that."
Visualization
Because
might have helped there.
yeah, visualization does help a lot.
Yep.
So like Drew said, getting infinite tokens to be able to quickly explain it is probably the play, if most people are very visual when the game is being played, to be honest. Um, Unless they're a very high level player that understands how your deck works.
Right.
And that's the other problem, is that a lot of players don't understand how our deck works. So you have to be very
Also, just not
specific
going to
with,
believe you when you try to explain it.
Right.
yeah, and a lot of them are not going to believe you when you try to explain it.
That's a big thing. Is that there's the personality spikes in the cEDH realm. The guys that are guys and gals that are very good at talking themselves in and out of situations that, if you were given the opportunity to think and sit about it, and or at least like visualize what you were that was being explained to you, there would be no way you would agree to it. And then they just push for a win after they spirit of the deal you. um and that's why people do not listen to those types of deals, because it's too complicated and they know the devil's in the details somewhere.
You
um
should you should wear a big hat and some nice boots. I've had people tell me it's really intimidating.
Yeah. So like that's the other thing that's really important, is like, you can point at your board state and be like, I will leave myself in this exact same board state when I'm done.
Yeah.
Except I will have 2 extra pieces, which are the mana rock and another dwarf.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you can choose to let me have an activation to deal with the problem. We can preemptively deal with the problem, but my board will be left the same, and we can deal with another problem that you feel is the reason why you're trying to force a draw at this point, instead of letting the game continue. And this is primarily for forced draws situations or top 16 games. It's going to be hard to just like do this all the time. But yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the pieces involved. I think we've kind of gotten over into the theory well enough, and we kind of like get why we want to do it. So
Sure.
let's
Hold on. I'm gonna cut you off. I gotta, I stay on that tournament grind, and I got something today. I gotta go.
But
Oh yeah,
have
have a
fun.
good one, buddy. Good luck.
Thanks. Goodbye, gamers.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Our boy is about to saddle up and ride off to get another top 10 finish. So let's move on to the game objects that matter in this context. I'm gonna let you go through it because we set it up, but you know it better.
Sure. The most important thing is that you need access to Clock of Omens, you need access to Liquid Metal Torque, you need a Maskwood Nexus so that you can tutor Plundering Barbarian, and you need Peter Parker's camera. You also need a way to transition into infinite untapped treasures, which is either going to be Roaming Throne, Zorn, or Battered Golem. And then you need a way to put things back in your deck. This is either going to be Bark Form Harvester with Sculpting Steel or Elixir of Immortality, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then you have Legion Extruder as well as a way to get rid of your own things by untapping Clock and all that stuff. So there is another viable choice for that as far as how you're leaving your own board state. So you're able to use Liquid Metal Torque alongside Clock of Omens and Infinite Untapped Treasures to make everything that your opponents have into artifacts. And then you can use Plundering Barbarian's ETB effect alongside Peter Parker's camera to destroy everything on the board, or everything that is agreed upon on the board. The last Peter Parker's camera film counter is used for itself, and it is put back in your deck with either Bark Form Harvester or Elixir of Immortality. You can then tutor it back out, and with the Plundering Barbarian ETB still in the stack, you can continue to copy it. So this allows you a board state where you're able to control your opponent's board and what your board state looks like at the end. So you can put Clock of Omens into the graveyard and back into your deck. You can put whatever it is that you have in play, like your Roaming Throne, your Battered Golem, whatever, into the graveyard and back into your deck so you don't have access to it. And then obviously some deals are going to require you to leave specific things in the graveyard. So this is usually going to be a Clock of Omens, or it's going to, require you to put your Bark Form Harvester into the graveyard and back into your deck, which is done by using Sculpting Steel to copy Bark Form Harvester, putting the original back into the graveyard, and then back into your deck with the Sculpting Steel, and then using the last thing from your Peter Parker's camera ETB stuff to destroy the Sculpting Steel copy, putting it to the graveyard. So you won't have access to Sculpting Steel, which also gives you extra value from something like a Cursed Mirror in regards to still having lines to win without Clock of Omens.
Yep.
Using like multiple Roaming Thrones or multiple Go-Go's or whatever. So, yeah. You can politic into leaving or destroying your own Maskwood Nexus or whatever pieces that you're putting into play. But you can very easily leave your board state in exactly the same state that it was in. You could also use the camera along with, your Liquid Metal Torque to get rid of your own Plundering Barbarian to put it back in your deck as well. Having the original get rid of the Clock as the last thing. There's a lot of different ways that you can sequence this that will all allow you to generate whatever board state that you desire and agree to for what stays in your deck or goes back in your deck, and then what stays in the graveyard.
All right. So before we move on to like the Elixir versus Bark Form plus Sculpting Steel discussion, I want to discuss this. This is not something you get to just do. This is not something you should expect that you're just going to do without practicing. You should set up a game state, and goldfish a deal and say, okay, this is how it's going to end, and then you're going to step through the entire thing, like from start to finish, so that you feel very comfortable, and so you don't fuck up your sequencing and lose the game, fuck up the sequencing and accidentally break a deal that you didn't intend to break, or otherwise make it way too long because you are fumbling. Because this is about as complex as Magda is getting lately in the last like year or so. This is about as many game actions as you're going to have to do using Peter Parker's camera to copy an ETB that stays on the stack for a long time. We haven't done stuff like that in a while, and the vast majority of the community won't be used to it. So if you're going to deploy this this facet of politicking, please be prepared to do it quickly and accurately, because you will make your self miserable trying sucking at it in public.
And the important thing is I'm explaining that this exists, and the unfortunate reality is a vast majority of pilots this is not going to be something that they're going to excel at using properly. But like Drew said, as long as you practice going through the line, practice explaining it, and being able to expedite that explanation and all that stuff, it should be something that everyone can be capable of learning to use to their advantage. But again, everything is all game state dependent, player dependent that you're dealing with, and all that stuff. And even though this is something that solves all the problems, you can't let yourself get frustrated when your opponents just are not being agreeable to something that they might not know exists, because this is like a top 1% Magda sort of
Big brain thing
big brain thing that you're going to be doing to navigate these situations. And not everyone is going to be in the state of mind to present something like this at those key points.
Yeah.
So it's just something you have to be willing to either throw to the side because it's not something you're comfortable with, or put the extra, time and effort into building the comfort to be able to pull this off.
Yep.
And that's going to take a while.
Oh, for sure.
If you don't have 100+ reps on the deck, this is not something I would consider even learning right now. But it's something that can be quite useful.
Yeah. More on the political side of things. Because this is a game of hidden information, people are going to make assessments that you are going to find illogical, especially when you are giving them the keys to the city to draw up their own agreement, as it were, and they're just going to not agree with you. And it's going to feel insane. It's going to feel like you're talking to an insane person when you're giving them all the tools to redefine the game state. Unfortunately, you don't know what's in their hand. You don't know what their strategy is, and regardless of what you think is like objectively true, there's no such thing as objectively when you're dealing with 4 people with hidden information and hidden strategies. So keep your cool. Keep your cool. Try not to let that get to you.
That is the other important thing, is that if you are specifically making a deal with one player and you are neutering the rest of the table and not really touching them that much, you must get as much information possible from them to make the decision to actually do this or not. Because if you're just putting them in a position to win the game where you don't have an activation and they're going to try to take advantage of this, at least the best players will. So you have to be very comfortable with requiring information from the person that's making the terms of the deal. Otherwise, you may just be punting the game to them. And this is also why it's very important to have a lot of reps in the format in general. Otherwise, you are going to shoot yourself in the foot more than you are going to gain advantage.
Mm-hmm. It'll be instead of just losing, it'll be like that one reaction gif of instead of stepping on the shovel, you'll be doing a kick flip off of some stairs onto the shovel and hitting yourself in the face.
It'll look really cool, but you'll still lose the game.
Yeah. It's a Rube Goldberg machine of self-destruction. Ironically, this is the closest we're gonna get to Rube Goldberg's in 2026, like by a lot.
That's not true, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Are you sure?
Yeah, go to the next slide.
All right, next slide. For the record, I wrote most of this, so I should know. Go ahead, buddy.
Elixir of Immortality is a card that we have cut since Barkform Harvester has been in the format. And Elixir of Immortality for this particular line of play actually makes things a lot simpler because you don't have to leave Sculpting Steel or Barkform Harvester in the graveyard at the end of your deal. It allows you to put everything back in your deck and only put the one thing that you want in the graveyard, like your clock or whatever, in the graveyard, and everything else goes back. The other upside to Elixir is that it is a backup if Barkform Harvester is stuck in hand, or has been exiled, or has been put in the graveyard. So Barkform Harvester is the single most common artifact dwarf that you do not want to play from your hand. So the amount of times this may get stuck in your hand and force you into a situation where you don't have a instant speed win can be quite high. Do your opponents always know this, and do they concede when you just make infinite treasures? More often than not. But some players are going to make you play things out, especially if they know that you don't have access to this card, whether that's exiled or put in the graveyard or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So Elixir solves that problem. Elixir also allows you to do Rube Goldberg machine-esque combo lines through Grafdigger's Cage if your opponent has a Grafdigger's Cage, or your own Grafdigger's Cage to allow you to win with it in play without having to remove it at all.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some upsides, and with cards like the One Ring having its utility be quite a bit less, we also don't want to be forced into a situation where you are drawing your deck as much as you can help it, at least in my opinion. So with the One Ring coming out, and that being one of the main ways to win through an opponent's Grafdigger's Cage, Elixir solves that problem of an opponent's Grafdigger's Cage, while also giving you some other value politically as far as this particular line of politics goes with your activations when force draws are in play and all that stuff. That is a lot easier to explain to your opponents, at least in my opinion. So you are making some deck building concessions potentially to gain political advantage or gain comfort. And that's completely up to you. If you are okay with your Sculpting Seal being put in the graveyard and left there, cool. You don't need Elixir of Immortality. You can still play your One Ring and do other things, right? But right now, both Rust and I are playing Elixir because of the backup potential for Barkform. We've both had it stuck in hand quite a few times over the past couple months. And just the fact that it helps with this sort of very complicated political situation when it comes up, which is actually quite often, or more often than I had considered previously before I started doing it. As you get more comfortable with it, you'll see more and more scenarios where I could have leveraged to not draw here, or I could have done this, or I could have done that, just by being able to use my words.
Yep.
And I don't like to. Drew doesn't like it calling it this, but it's basically terrorism politics because you're saying I'm not willing to accept a draw here. I am going to do this. You're either going to accept that I'm going to do this and we're going to come and do a deal, or I'm going to let the next player win.
So I love the content of this. I just think don't use the T word outside of the mine is what I'm trying to say. People don't aren't going to be like, "Oh, that sounds like a very reasonable thing people should do at the table." But yeah. The term I like for this, because you are ultimately turning back around to a game state where you're not immediately presenting a win, is dirtling. But not, you're doing it fast. It's turbo dirtling. I'm just dirtling, just a little faster. Don't worry about it, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever like psychological tools you can use to make this happen, I say use them. Don't call it terrorism politics, because people are going to be like, bet, okay.
It is what it is, though.
It certainly is. It certainly
because you are basically saying I am not willing to draw here. This is what is available to me. you're either going to let me do that, or we're going to lose to the next player that you're worried about.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very powerful, to have the ability to completely deny draws because you have an out, and it's up to your opponent being willing to,
Work with it.
work with it or just lose the game.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, through Magda's large, tournament history of ups and downs, like, that's been the biggest one. Things that are just so close to a dub, right? Turning into a D because we're half a turn too slow, or someone presented an instant speed win con at the same time, or just we're so on board that we often instigate the draw moments, right? Or are part of them.
Yes.
And now we have a way through that. That's just a single card when our card quality's gone up a good bit, and our threat density's gone up a good bit over the last year and a half. And it feels good to me. That personally feels good to me. I'm very excited to do this as often as I need to. Is there anything else to say on the topic, buddy?
No, just only do what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Don't force yourself to do stuff like this, because if you are not confident, if you are not, able to communicate very well, um, you are going to shoot yourself in the foot more often than not.
Someone asked, would it be worth running both? What are we talking about specifically?
What are you talking about? Yeah, you
Yeah.
run it in addition as a backup.
Yeah. You always run bark form. You
And
run elixir in
I
this
would
case.
not run elixir if you are currently playing the One Ring.
Agreed.
If you are not playing the One Ring, elixir is worth playing because it gives you answers to other situations. Because when you do not have the One Ring or a draw loop, your ability to win with whatchamacallit, Pinnacle Monk does not exist.
Yep. I mean, so let me before we kick it over to the scrimmaging and practice tips that I like to close out with, um, I want to open the floor up to Q&A. I don't have a slide for that, but let's say we're here for my timing later. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to jump up and ask, or anything you want to drop in the chat? Feel free. This is what that time is for. Probably in the next 10 minutes or so, we will answer any and all questions that you guys might have. So I see several. Oh, beautiful. Hey, Buddha. How you doing, buddy? Get on up here.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Buddha.
What's good, bud?
Hey, it's first off, it's been a while. Miss
Yeah.
you guys.
Nice to see you, bud.
The big thing that I am wanting some information, like feedback from you guys from, is getting into sticky political situations. Um, how to de-escalate with the line that we were just talking about. How to de-escalate a situation where you didn't initiate the politics. They're politicking with each other, but you have access to this line.
Let me think on that for a second.
So my question to you is, how are you getting to a board state where you can win on top of someone else and the two players are ignoring you?
It is in a situation where maybe one of the Gaia's Cradle decks, insert any one you want here,
Mhm.
is trying to stick a win, and then you have another instant speed win deck like, say, Sisse, trying to win over the top of them, and you also have this board state, and they're trying to politic with each other for a straight draw when you can just do a reset, and they're trying to butt you out of a conversation.
You have
That is where
less leverage there.
I'm at. Right. So that's what I've been in this situation in the last like 3 big events that I've gone to. Where it's like, "Hey, I have this thing that can reset this, but they're just so in sync with each other at butting you out of the conversation, and the fourth player is just like, I don't know, like hands in air, memeing on you, you know.
Yeah, no,
If
what Nat said is perfect. My perspective here is that if they are already negotiating a deal with you out of it to try to work on a draw, and you don't have any input, like you don't need to draw, and you're not going to draw, and they're putting like game actions together, right? If they can just work through game actions and you guys can pass priority on stuff until you can activate on top, that's what I would do. I would say that you don't have the leverage to unforce the draw when you're basically turning a two-way tie into a three-way tie, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I don't think that you have the same kind of leverage to reset because two people wanting to basically saying no king makes let's just draw have already kind of created the majority vote in that sense.
right, right.
the only thing that I would say there is let them talk through their deal,
Mhm.
let them make the deal, and then when they're like, "Are you okay to draw?" Then you go, um,
Play it out,
you
I guess. Like,
you either go, "I would like you to play it out," or you go, "I I am not willing to draw here, and I have a way to make sure that none of the three of us win and we can continue to play the game if there's enough time on the clock," which is the
okay,
important part.
yeah, yeah. So that's
If
that's the
if you have like
interaction point,
30 if you
right?
have like 35 plus minutes left in the game and you need a win and a draw doesn't do anything for you, then maybe talk at the end.
Yep.
But don't make any comments until
I'll
you
try to
absolutely have.
interject.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't try to interject until you have to.
Yep.
Because
right,
again, they're trying to force a draw, and like Natalie's saying, it's a political dance. And
right,
it's how well you speak, how well you understand their decks, what their interaction points are, etc.
Yep.
Because, if the Sisse has the ability to activate twice and they can go get Teferi and it's their turn, well, you know, you're boned.
right.
And the Rogthras player or whatever is going to try to win on top of that. So depending on their board state, there may be a situation where you're able to use Squeak Out ahead of that. Um, and this is why I was saying this is something that the two opponents shouldn't be willing to, just ignore you, right?
Yep.
Because like Natalie is saying, we can win through Teferi.
Yeah,
So like if that comes down, it doesn't save the Sisse player, right? It also doesn't save the Sisse player from the Rogthras that's trying to win the game with whatchamacallit, with their loop with the land,
Mm-hmm.
right?
yeah.
Um,
I know what card you're talking
yeah,
about. Talon Gates. Yeah,
yeah,
Aboro.
Telling Gates and Aboro,
yeah. Aboro. Right,
right? Because that's the situation that you'd have to be in for that to come up.
right. So it's the reason that I brought up the Cradle deck is because of that. I'm sorry for not being more direct about that one.
No, it
No, no, it's okay.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Like it still carries
yeah.
through.
I was able to get the point through
Yeah.
with the Cradle description. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thank you for that. I wanted to say hello to you guys also.
All right. Hi,
It's
buddy.
been a
It's good. It's
while.
good seeing you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go ahead and hop out there.
All right. Back to the mines with you. All right. All right. In response, Scott has asked something. Go for it, buddy. Also, long time no see.
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing just fine.
So I wanted to hop in just to discuss a single card that you guys talked about that's on the cut block, and that's Siege Smash.
Yeah.
It's been cut for a long
Card.
time,
Yeah.
actually.
I know. Well, I hear you, and this card, it's yes, a lot of times it just destroys the basalt or something like that. Um, Maybe it's an experience thing, but like it has been the single most important piece of interaction for me to get to that turn 3 win. I have stopped so many people on turn 2 that are trying to push before me and gotten able to get to my turn because of Siege Smash. Just blowing up something dumb sometimes, a Chrome Mox or uh, something that gives Rogsai the mana to keep going or something like that. And I just was like, that's such a hard card to get rid of for me.
Mana sources are special actions, right?
Yes, they can be tapped, but if they're doing it before that player untaps and they're getting rid of it,
Yeah,
taking them off of the meta
Okay, understood.
beforehand, then it's
Yeah,
fine.
okay.
So, yes, I agree with you that that is a special use case for the card. And it is a very heavily meta dependent card as to how much turbo you're seeing and how much Kinnan you're seeing. If
right.
you're seeing like 50+% of your games have Rogsai type deck and a Kinnan, it's a card that may still be worth playing and finding a slot for.
Okay.
But if you're playing for a blind meta, you don't necessarily want to make those concessions unless it's what you really feel like you're going to see the most of.
Yeah.
Like if I were to have done that going into the Rumble this year, I saw one pod with a Rogsai that I was in personally,
hmm
and I saw 2 pods with a Kinnan. So like it could have done okay, but of my 7 rounds that I played, it maybe would have done things 30% of the time.
hmm
And it's also something that I can't obviously tutor for. So it's limited as far as how useful it can be based on your opening hand as well. So
Okay.
there's a lot to be taken into consideration in the consistency of things. And I don't think the consistency is there because you're thinking about the times that it has done work for you
Mhm.
versus the amount of times that like it either had little impact or no impact.
Right.
So experience bias, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
potential
I
experience
mean,
bias.
it's true. My tournament that I went to yesterday had like 10 Kinnons out of 40 people.
Yeah,
So
you're deep in Kinnan country though. Like you are like the
yeah.
poster child of like the
Well,
RB little kid with green hair,
yeah.
Like
Kinnon just won last that tournament. Simic Queen. What's her name? Stephanie.
right, but your meta is very Kinnan heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So I might
And
run
then I
Siege
play
Smash
on
in your
crit.
meta, right? Like that would make
And then
sense.
I play on crit, which is all turbo. So
Right.
Yeah. So like it's one of those things where it can be a very strong card, it can be a worthless card, etc. So like you really have to make the decision on am I okay not running something else that's important or potentially important to get this effect? And if the answer is yes, it's just figuring out what you value the least to keep it.
Yep.
But I don't think that it's good enough for me to have the base list run it.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. And finally, I just want to thank you guys because this conversation has definitely helped me make some changes that I feel like are going to be really nice to the deck. So I do appreciate this a lot.
No problem. We try to do it as often as
Happy to be
we
here.
yeah. All right. Well,
That Troger is going to go nuts. Take care,
it
guys.
already is, dude. All right, I'm gonna toss you back in the mine. Last question that I've seen is from Elgen. What about playing only interaction to protect our win, nothing to try to stop or slow down other players? So that's an interesting thought in like an only gas no brakes kind of version of the deck. The problem is we're mono red, and some of our best cards in slot in general happen to be removal spells, and
Yeah.
we can cut 10 interaction pieces, right, and only leave the counter spells and the swats, right? But what are we filling that hole with? And they're not format defining all stars, I'll tell you that much. They're not even cards that are like great in Magda. It's unfortunate to say, but we're kind of a monocolor deck.
The other thing is that even though decks do run a lot of bounce spells, single target removal is not the most plentiful thing in the format.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of creature-based win conditions where having a lightning bolt for it stops them clean.
Mm-hmm.
Killing a Ral stops them.
Thank God.
Sometimes killing a Rog before their turn, where they're going to, sacrifice it for mana, stops an opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there are too many things in the format currently that interaction solves to stop an opponent. And sometimes getting that one extra turn is what you need, and stopping that opponent from winning the game gets you that turn.
Yeah. Like, and they're high tempo, right? You can use it when you have extra mana. You can you don't have to main phase. Like it has none of the problems that Stacks does in that context.
The other thing is we're running all the things that we can run as protection pieces for our own
Yep.
stuff that are worth running,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So, like, finding things to, quote unquote, protect our win, that are instant speed sort of things that you can use just almost don't exist.
Yeah, we're not trying to run Ricochet Trap and what's the 4 CMC or greater one, or the 4 power or greater SWAT.
I forget.
But you know what I'm talking about. Those cards are not good enough to run in a deck like ours, so we don't.
Right.
Like trust me, if we could run more SWATs that just did SWAT plus or was like a cheap SWAT or a free SWAT, right? We would run those instead of more counter magic or burn spells or whatever. Bolt bend, thank you. Yeah, but they're just not good enough, and we wouldn't run them even if we could. We'd find more dwarves or robo dwarves or mana generation or something else, more like active game plan. I think that's it on the last question. Last question. Let's see. When you guys mentioned changes to the Magdanomicon earlier, was that just about Troger, Elixir, just the cards on that slide, or other things that might change? Show does his updates separate from these videos. We time these videos when there's big changes because there's something to talk about. But he does his own updates. So do you have any idea of when that's gonna like when you're gonna poke it moving like stuff around on the Magdanomicon?
Nope.
All right.
It could be anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. It really depends. And removing things like needle or disruptor flute or cage or whatever, you can do that, but like you don't gain enough gas doing that to have it be warranted. And you're going to lose more games and draw less games that you can force into a draw with an activation, by doing stuff like that.
Correct.
So you're getting negative tournament EV. And Academy Manufacturer does not combo off with Dagger without it being the Clock of Omens thing. Like, sure, that's cool, but the only other reason that Academy Manufacturer is ever good is if you copy Academy Manufacturer. And it doesn't do anything other than that. You're getting some sort of a draw out of it, but it's just not good enough.
Yeah, bad draw.
There are a lot of times where I talk about that card in the Magdanomicon that you can look up as to why it's not being run. Both in the update section and I think in the cards to discuss section.
Yeah. Moxie, you don't no longer need to talk, or was that on accident? Yeah, what about it? Oh, if anyone's going to the boil, there's probably a thread for it somewhere.
And if there isn't, you can make one.
Yep.
In the what's it called?
Yeah, you can ping the tournament grinders and say, "Hey, who's going?"
Tournaments and meetups. It's down under the Merchant Square.
Yep. Anyhow, I think that's the our elapsed time. I'm just gonna speed through this last slide real quick because I like to end the Dwarf Days on this. Please practice and practice intentionally. Don't just play Magic. Get better at Magic. My suggestions, and these are just suggestions, not the law under the mountain, as it were. Play as Magda. Play against Magda. The Magda mirror match is not super useful. Play as close to competitive REL as possible. Takebacks are acceptable only insofar as they are political takebacks, not oops, I just forgot how to play the game for a second takebacks. Take your L's, you will learn from them. Take pictures of your mulligans. Talk to your co-players about your mulligans. Talk to your dwarves here about your mulligans, because we have a mulligan channel to talk about things like that. Utilize politics whenever possible, not just in high intensity / high impact games that you need to like eke out some EV through the yap. Practice your politicking at all levels of play. It's very useful. It's how you're going to be
Practice like you're playing at a tournament. Otherwise, it's not going to matter.
Exactly. Because you ultimately, if you are not comfortable politicking, you will get flustered. Flustered people make bad decisions. They also put people off, and it's all our responsibility as players to be part of a welcoming and comfortable tournament scene and experience. So you will be happier, and your co-players will be happier if the way you're talking reflects you being comfortable. And follow the tournament. Follow whatever current tournament rules you're used to, 75, 80-minute rounds, whatever it is, and be cognizant of slow play. There's probably a couple other
And also,
things.
don't forget to actually practice top 16 and top 4 games.
Yes, that's
which
true.
don't have, or that have a 3-hour time limit or no time limit, depending on the situation.
That is true. Give yourself an 11-hour window is all I'll say. At least that that's the upper maximum, right? Anyway, but yeah, no, practice as if what you're doing matters, because it might matter that you practice as if it mattered. Is there anything else anyone else has? Show, you have anything else you want to talk about?
Not really.
All right.
I think we covered everything that we need to. If you are new to the deck or want to talk about things, I also do coaching on the server for tutoring or whatever you want to call it. So you can sign up in that area if you want, and depending on my availability, I do that stuff. It is free, so anyone can take advantage of it. Just don't expect 5 hours.
Yeah, no, certainly not. All right. Well, thank you, dwarves, all for coming and for being a part of this Dwarf Day. It's been a while, and I'm glad to get back in the saddle. Mine some more wins. Be kind to one another, and protect your bling. Double sleeve, all that good stuff.